tell you something a little bit more about our guest. His name is Derrick Gardner. He was born in Chicago, Illinois, and he started playing the trumpet at 9 years of age. I mean, he quickly rose up through school and then quickly made his mark in the New York jazz scene after arriving in the Big Apple in 1991. In that same year, he formed his sextet, the Jazz Prophet, and he has traveled the world playing like top level jazz, including 5 years in the Count Basie Orchestra, and he still does guest appearance, but he's traveled the world. He's played with a whole bunch of like jazz maestros, as I mentioned earlier. Right, people, tune into the Africa Global Radio. I have Derrick Gardner here with me in the studio. Welcome to the Arts Africa show.
Thank you so much.
We've had a little bit of a chat while Still I Rise was playing, but yesterday was the first time I heard your music. No shade, I love it. Prior to relocating to Ghana, I lived in Cuba. And so they have jazz, and they also have a jazz festival, which I used to attend and absolutely loved. And then in the UK, I also had my membership of the Ronnie Scott's.
Ronnie Scott's?
Yeah.
Yes, I played there.
Okay, yeah. So I had my membership and I used to go. And then, of course, I came to Ghana and everything's died. So thank you for reigniting my interest in jazz to begin with. How has your week been? What have you been up to?
Oh, my goodness. It has been absolutely amazing since arriving in Ghana. I've been here for about 3 weeks so far. And I have been to villages outside of Accra. I've been to Cape Coast. I've been to Elmina. I've seen... I've gone beyond what you would expect a tourist to do.
But then you didn't come as a tourist, though, did you?
No, no, I didn't.
What brought you to Ghana? What was your mission?
My mission was to perform here in Ghana with the help of a wonderful promoter and artist agent by the name of Diallo Sombri. And I'm also I teach at the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, Canada, and I'm on sabbatical leave from the university. And part of my sabbatical research was to come to Ghana and recognize the blatant and subtle similarities between traditional Ghanaian music and jazz. Because jazz is seeded from African music. And all the rhythms and all the harmonies and all the subtleties of African music you can hear in jazz. You know, and I hear it all the time, especially the rhythmic part of it. And but it's not really focused upon educationally in America, you know, and I've taught at many jazz institutions in America, and they don't focus on how
it originates.
Jazz originates from Africa, and so I'm here to prove that.
And I suppose also to get us to fall back in love with it, because there isn't much jazz happening in Ghana, based on my limited knowledge, I must say. But how much have you found since you came?
I've seen. I've only so far been to plus 233 jazz.
That's like the premier place to go to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
because I think the last time I was there, which would be pre-COVID, I went to see the pianist Victor Day.
Yeah. I have yet to meet him. I heard he's a wonderful artist.
He is wonderful. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I've heard. And
I'm trying to see if he will come on this show.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I've met a couple of musicians. One of which is going to be performing with me. His name is pianist Obed Bowden, I believe I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. And
Is he a jazz pianist?
he's a all-around pianist.
Okay.
He plays with groups that play more popular
Like
Afrobeat and
high life
music.
music.
I
Yeah.
went to his gig at the Zen Gardens.
That's another place for very good
Yeah.
music. Yeah.
And they had the whole house on fire. I mean, that place was just jumping through the roof.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but to me, I was like, man, the music is incredible. Just the effect that it has on the listeners, and everybody was having a great time and responding to the music. And that's the same thing we try to do with jazz. We try to get a response from our listener to the point where we provide an escape.
I think it changes the molecular structure of your being because you feel completely different when you
Yeah,
listen to jazz.
that it does. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
What's your average day like?
Oh,
Based with what you're doing here.
what I'm doing here. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I love coffee, and so I get up and I make.
You said you've been to Cape Coast?
Yes.
There's
yes.
a coffee house there
Oh,
run by he's an African American who relocated to Ghana,
oh wow.
and he has a coffee shop in Cape Coast. I haven't been there, but I do follow him on Facebook.
I've got to find him
Yeah, I will find him and let you know so that you
Okay.
can go have a good cup of coffee.
because we're going
there.
back to Cape Coast soon,
Okay.
and so I have to find him.
Yeah.
And so I've grown into sort of a home barista, you might say. And so I found a way to make a really great cup of coffee here
Okay.
while I'm staying here in Ghana.
Did you bring your beans with you or?
No, but I found some great beans at the Vita Cafe.
Okay, Vide Cafe,
Mhm.
yeah.
And
Oh yes.
they ground some fresh beans for me, and I put it in using a mocha pot. That's
What's that?
It's
Is it
it's
like-
very
is it-
famous in Cuba.
A cafetiere.
I think so.
It comes in two parts.
Yep, that's right.
Metal.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's so old school.
Yeah, yeah, I like old school. And the espresso is just da-da-da. So
So it kickstarts you
oh
for the
man,
day.
yeah, I'm ready to go. I can climb a mountain after that.
Okay, so after the coffee, what happens?
Then I practice.
Okay.
And I practice for at least throughout the day. It might be about 3 hours. The first part of my practice is more routine, warm-up routines, in order to get the embouchure in shape. And
Get the what in shape?
the embouchure,
What's that?
this area here.
It's called the embouchure.
The embouchure. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You might see like this like enhanced part of my.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the
Because
mouthpiece
of the
fits right there, and you have to blow very specific airstream in order for the sound production on
So
the
there's
trumpet.
a whole science to that.
Oh yeah,
Really.
yeah. It's the trumpet is the most difficult of the brass wind instruments, and has the highest air pressure rate, the lowest air flow rate. So air pressure is like when you're playing it,
Mm-hmm.
and you get that vein that comes if you don't relieve that pressure, you can
Just pass out.
faint.
Yeah.
And so you have to know how to blow in order to be able to feel free when you play. And which is part of my whole educational philosophy for playing trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
And so so I practice, and then I'll get out and maybe do a little walk around the neighborhood just to take it all in, and then I'll hook up with I'll get in an Uber
Mm-hmm.
and go someplace and find some place to eat, or I'll hook up with my fraternity brother also, Diallo Sombri,
Okay.
and he'll pick me up. Hey man, we got to go and do this. I want you to got to experience this. So I'm
Gotta
gonna
go
take
to
you here.
Zen
Boom.
Gardens. We gotta
And-
do this.
Oh man. Yeah.
What have you eaten here that you've enjoyed the most, Ghanaian food wise?
Oh man. Oh wow. I think my favorite so far is the fufu with the peanut soup.
With a groundnut soup, yeah?
Groundnut soup, yes.
With what meat?
I've had chicken, I believe. I only had chicken with the peanut, with the groundnut soup.
Next time, do goat.
Goat, yeah, I would love to do. I would love to do goat.
And then maybe they can take you really local. You can go and do bush meat.
I've seen that on the side of the road. I've seen that. Have you had that?
I'm not a fan of it. But actually,
Okay.
I'm not a fan of fufu either. So
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't believe in anything that my teeth don't participate in. So,
Oh my goodness. But I mean, it's a cultural discovery for me, because I'm not used to eating with my hands,
hands.
and once I got into it, I said, oh, I got this, yeah, and so and I've had banku,
Yes.
I've had that with fish, and I've had
Shi-
red.
Shito, our hot pepper. Have you eaten that?
I think I did because the pepper I ate something that was pretty spicy, and I said, "Oh man, this is good."
Okay.
So,
And then you've had red, you said?
I've had red, and I've had the fufu with the okra soup.
Okay.
I've had that, and and we had at the
Is it
Diallo.
fufu with okra or banku with okra?
No, it was fuf. It was okra soup,
Okay.
and the fufu thing
Okay.
on the side. It had chicken in it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and man, it was good. It was incredible. Um, I went out to Diallo took me out to his village, which is about up in the mountains, about maybe 2-3 hours outside of Accra,
Mm-hmm.
and the cook of the village prepared the food on an open fire
Fire.
out on the floor,
Mm-hmm.
and she had that. She controlled that fire as if it was like a gas stove or something, and the food was 5 star. I mean, she could have worked in anybody's high end restaurant.
Restaurant.
Just the way that it was incredible, incredible. Yeah. So yeah, I've become quite the limited expert on Ghanaian cuisine with the 4 dishes.
But not bad because there are people who come and don't do anything.
Yeah.
They it's like, well, I'm here in Ghana, but I'm not going to do anything Ghanaian. But you're doing your thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so each week, my guest starts with a reading of sorts. It could be from a book, it could be a poem, it could be a quote, it could be a proverb. But the most important thing is that it must mean something to you. So, what have you brought, and why is it so special?
Wow. Uh, well, there's quite a few that I could choose from. Matter of fact, you even started off with a piece that I wrote called "Still I Rise," which is named after a wonderful poem that had great influence on me from the poet Maya Angelou,
Mm-hmm.
who repatriated here
Yes.
to Ghana many years ago.
Yeah.
But another one that affected me incredibly was Nelson Mandela,
Mm-hmm.
and he's someone that I have been rediscovering very recently, ever since he was released from prison back in the late '80s, and but he said something to the effect said in order to be free is not a matter of just
Casting off your
casting
chain.
off your
Chains.
your chains
Mm.
or your shackles, but rather living your life in a manner that respects and enhances the freedoms of all people, of
Yeah.
others, and as I really thought about that, I said, wow, this it really speaks to the depth of his love for humanity, and he's not seeing uh, color. He's not seeing judging people by their religion, creed, anything. He just sees people as being equal, and it even speaks to his uh, he was being interviewed like right after he got was released from prison, and the interviewer um, asked him. He said, "Well, aren't you at all bitter or angry about having spent these 27 years in prison and the way they treated you and this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah." And man, Nelson Mandela just so eloquently read him the riot act,
Mm-hmm.
but in saying, first pointing out that you know your question reveals
More
a
about.
window into your own
Yes. Yeah.
ideology. So you would be bitter after spending 27 years here. But he was like, no, I am not bitter. I'm not angry because if I was angry, then I would still be in prison mentally.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, wow. That is so, the depth of what he said, it just takes all the air out of the room. It just really makes you think. And it shows how he led South Africa in creating this every everybody's equal. Everybody is free, and let's make society as such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because obviously, too often people are building themselves up by crushing others. I mean, perfect example. The world, we have so many people in poverty, people without access to health, and old men are busy running into space.
Mm.
And how between Branson, Bezos, and Elon Musk, they could sort out so many issues.
Of course.
Right, but they're too busy. You know, every other man who hits middle age buys a leather jacket and a motorbike or finds himself a new girlfriend. They get rockets, they're going into space.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting that you said when you mentioned the way Nelson Mandela responded to the interviewer. I have a friend who sends me stuff on WhatsApp, and it's usually specific stuff that I've actually asked her not to send me anymore, but it's always about one person who comes out and says Africans would never progress because blah blah blah, and this is what we, and it's always some white man apparently who comes and says this.
Of course.
And my first thing was, I don't want to see this. I know we have problems. I don't want to hear some white guy telling me,
of course,
why we're so stupid or whatever. And then finally it dawned on him, but he's actually talking about himself.
Of course.
He's not, we are actually not part of, and so I said to her, but there's two sides to a coin. He's saying we're stupid, and so it's great for them to exploit us, but what does it say about him and them?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was a little bit stumped. It hasn't stopped her sending me the stuff. You know. Okay.
Yeah.
Our next track is Mac Daddy Grip. Now, what I did earlier with your previous tracks was I went to music sites to read up about it. So where was my first one was like it made me sound as if I knew what I was talking about. So it was like, this was about the Blackmore, and it was, this is a challenging up-tempo composition in G minor, arranged with intricate counter melody. You know, it really felt I made it. And then of course I had to admit that I Googled it. But, but for this one, the expert is here. It's your music. So what is Mac Daddy Grip about, and what inspired it?
Mac Daddy Grip. Firstly, the term is describes that's straight out of the African American culture. It describes a gentleman that is like kind of like the ladies' man, or he's a person that he's kind of like the go-to person that can do everything, get anything for you. He's the one that everybody wants to be around, you know, kind of the life of the party, you know.
The Mac
and
Daddy.
he got like he always has like some some pocket change, some change in his pocket where he has a hand in his pocket, kind of jingling his
Mm-hmm.
pocket. Say, yeah, I got a little bit of got a
So
little
this is
bankroll with me,
yeah.
and um,
It sounds so 40s and
oh
50s.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's comes from that's why all these type of terms is kind of being thrown out there. And so, what's up, Mac Daddy? How you doing? And so, um, and the musical platform that I chose to describe this was a groove called the shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
And shuffle is like the jazz beat. You got the jazz beat on the cymbal that's struck by the drumstick. Dang, dang, ga-dang, dang, ga-dang, dang, ga-dang, dang. And then you got on beats 2 and 4, you got one tat, tat on the snare drum, but the other hand, tat, that, ga-dang, dang, ga-dang, dang, ga-dang, dang. Then you put a little skip on the 2 and 4. Dang, kadak, kadang, dang, kadang, kadak, kadang, kadak, kadang, kadak, kadang. And that shuffle is the precursor to what you hear in popular black music in the states. We have that backbeat, tat, tat,
Mm-hmm.
2 and 4, 1, 2, like that. And so, um, and it has like a thing where it just gets you into a groove, and it puts you in this trance where you just kind of, once your head starts moving and your feet start tapping, you start tapping your finger, then we as musicians, that's when we're doing our job. If you don't see that, then okay, something's wrong with the music.
Yeah.
And so I chose that groove to musically symbolize Mac Daddy grip.
And I was just thinking, I love reading Chester Himes. I've been a huge fan of Chester Himes for like years.
Ah, yeah.
I've got like collections of his books.
Ah,
And the moment, um, Mac Daddy Grip, immediately I thought of like his books, Cotton Comes to Harlem,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that
right.
kind of
Yep.
that kind of groove. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Mac Daddy Grip, and then we're going to get into the interview proper when we come back.
Okay.
I kind of feel a little bit sorry for you, the listeners, because like when the music is playing, the conversation is still going on. And you did not know we have a Mac Daddy Grip right here in the studio. And he's like, leave me alone, leave me alone. Okay, so the conversation has like been really, really great. Okay, let's get into our interview properly. First of all, what is jazz?
Oh my goodness, that is such a hard question to answer. And this is how the old heads would answer that question. They said, if you don't know what it is, you'll never know. And that's like, wow, okay, yeah, that kind of sums it up. Um, it's it's a very vague kind of thing. It's like, especially when you talk about any type of musical genre. You know, what is uh, uh, what is traditional Ghanaian? What is Ghanaian music, or what is Afrobeat?
Mm-hmm.
What is classical music? What is impressionistic music? What is? It's very difficult to answer unless you kind of play an example for them and
Okay.
say, okay, this is what it sounds like, but how do you describe that?
So, what about if you were to give us a little bit about the history?
History of jazz?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, uh, it starts with improvisation. The
Mm-hmm.
whole concept of improvisation, and if you go, people want to always say that it starts in New Orleans with Louis Armstrong on
Okay.
trumpet, but it actually goes back much, much further. When they reference Louis Armstrong, they're talking about maybe 19. Actually, let's go back further than that. Buddy Bolden, who preceded Louis Armstrong and organized the first jazz band in New Orleans in 1905.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go back to around 1844, with uh, an African American who was born free in Philadelphia named Francis Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
He was Um, he was a virtuoso of the keyed Kent bugle, which is basically a trumpet without vowels, but had these like saxophone kind of keys on the body of the bugle,
It's like this shape, right?
like that shape in the
Uh-huh.
bell.
Yeah.
But instead of vowels, it has these like keys like a saxophone.
Okay.
And he was a virtuoso of that instrument, and he was a composer, and made quite a name for himself in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And so he would write for his ensemble, and he would instruct his musicians to take liberties with what's written on the page, or to
Freestyle.
rag the melody, you
Okay.
know. And so this term rag started to come into the context and started to mean to take liberties with, and it's kind of like the precursor to what came several decades later called ragtime
Yes.
music, you
Yeah.
know. And then uh, so then that kind of metamorphosized into what was happening in New Orleans, where they you know were in lockstep with like the whole ragtime movement, but they were doing something a little different with the culture in New Orleans. They were taking like like hymns, church hymns, and they would like in the culture when they have a funeral, they
Mhm.
would have like they would take
Oh
a hymn like
yeah.
"Just a Closer Walk with Thee," and they would do like a slow dirge.
Where they
You know,
walk
they
down the
walk
street
down,
with the umbrellas
yeah,
and all of
to the
that.
cemetery.
Yeah.
And do
Yes.
do dee do dee do da. Boom. Yeah, do dee, and this be all the way to the funeral home,
Yeah.
and then once they have the burial, then that same brass band would go, boom, ba-doo, dee, dee, doo, da,
Uh-huh.
and they party, all the
And
way to the
dancing.
picnic grounds,
Yeah.
and so, but once you get past like the the first statement of the melody, bo, dee, doo, dee, doo, doo, dee, dee, doo, doo, dee, boo, dee, doo, dee, doo, doo, doo. Boo dee doo dee boo dee doo doo dee. And so what you're gonna do? You're gonna keep repeating the melody.
Mhm.
You got to do something different now.
Yeah.
Because you got to go all the way down to the picnic grounds in order to get there and provide this happy music. So you start taking liberties with the melody. Boo boo dee 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 doo doo boo doo dee. Boo doo dee dee doo boo doo doo doo. Dee 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 boo dee doo dee dee boo doo doo boo doo doo dee dee doo dee dee dee. So that's a little different than what the original melody. Then the next chorus, you take more liberties
It
with
is
it.
it. And it just builds
It
like
just
it's like a
builds and builds.
crescendo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that's that's pretty much the gist of how jazz kind of got started through improvisation, and that improvisation started to take on to dominate the entire culture.
Mhm.
But you state the melody, and then the solos start, and the solos take up the majority percentage of the entire performance. And to the point that jazz was recognized by improvisation, which makes it uh, totally different than classical music.
Mhm.
And so then what ended up happening when the music started to move into other areas, like the center of jazz was New Orleans, and then the center of jazz became Chicago, and so the music was basically New Orleans music in Chicago, but it changed because of the weather.
Okay.
Because in New Orleans it's hot,
Yeah.
in Chicago it's only hot like maybe 6 months out of the year, and so in the wintertime you can't be playing outside anymore because people freeze.
Yeah.
And so they take the band inside, but some of the instrumentation changed. Now you don't have a big tuba anymore. The tuba player plays upright bass. You know,
Okay.
you don't have a banjo anymore because now the banjo player will play piano, which is more suited for the inside.
Mhm.
And so that changed the texture of the music, and the music started to be more written out and arranged. You have specific statement of melody, specific solo sections, a specific like kind of development section for the ensemble where some other stuff is written and everything.
Mm.
Then a composed ending that's really slick, you know. And so now it started to, you know, kind of get more sophisticated. Then the music moved to New York, where it underwent even more sophistication, you know, with all these elaborate arrangements and stuff. And and it started to blossom into this new thing. And then bring up Dizzy Gillespie again. Um, Dizzy Gillespie ushered in the era of bebop,
Mm-hmm.
where they felt like the music was starting to get kind of stale and stagnant in the swing era, and so Dizzy was like, you know, we need to focus more on improvisation and making the music more, I guess, more elaborate with how we improvise, you know. So he devised a system of musical analysis that we just call jazz theory. Basically, we took classical music theory and reinterpreted it for improvisation. You know, they have these symbols that they use in classical
Mm-hmm.
music for analyzing the harmony. And when you look at it, when you go to play, it's like you have to do all this math in your head in order to figure out what key you're in and everything. And so um, Dizzy said, you know, let's simplify that. Let's call it this so that we're able to think faster. And oh, I can play that scale with that. Boom. And there it was, you know. That came the whole thing called that we use for jazz theory that we use to this day. And so yeah, jazz has come quite a long way in its development to where it is now, and you know it's here. It is a very well respected music around the world,
Mm.
and and it made its way to Ghana, you know, several decades ago. And
Tell us a bit about your findings, obviously, since you've come, about the jazz connection to Ghana.
when during the World Wars, uh, I guess that would take us back to World War One, and
So 1914.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and some of the servicemen from America were musicians,
Of course.
and so they brought their music with them, and started um, to you know, meet and collaborate with African musicians, you know, here in Ghana, and the Ghanaian musicians took, you know, what they collaborated with the Black American musicians and blended it in with Ghanaian musical culture and came up with their own version of
Jazz.
what jazz is, you know, and it was like it was literally a reseeding of where jazz came from, you know. So okay, we took the seeds of jazz through the transatlantic slave trade over, you know, to was planted in America, and this is what we came up with. And we took that seed, now bring it back
Back.
to
Which
Ghana.
is like the full circle.
Yeah,
Everything has to do that.
that's right. That's right. You know, so you got like one of the early groups, the Black and White Spots. You know, from what was that, around 1925, 1930, maybe, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And and they were like one of the first groups that uh, first popular Ghanaian groups that laid the foundation for what is now happening in Ghanaian music. It all stems from those first groups back in the early 1900s that laid that foundation for that groove and that beat. You know, to what's happening, I would say, and with the Afro beat and with
Mm-hmm.
the high life. High life preceded the Afro beat. You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
So
like everything sort of melds into and creates something new.
of course, of course.
I think, have you met Professor John Collins?
No, I haven't.
He's like, I think, Ghana's foremost musicologist.
Wow.
Now, he came to mind because when you were talking, I kept on thinking of brass bands.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that brass music was like, it's been very, was part of Ghana's music thing, like 18,
Mm.
1900s. Um, but he's been working to archive or whatever Ghana's music with photos and things, and he has imagery that goes
Mm.
back to the 1800s
Oh
of
wow.
bands and music. And so when it comes to music, he's like Ghana's musicologist.
Oh wow.
So he's an obviously originally a British man, but he's been in Ghana for like forever.
Ah, okay, okay,
Um,
okay. He's still living. He's still here.
yes,
Okay. Oh, I'd love to meet him.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that might be interesting for you because he would have a lot of information about
Oh,
music around that
sure,
time.
sure. Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Okay. So I read that you started music at age 9.
Hmm.
Um, influences and do you come from a musical family?
Yes.
I thought so
Yes,
because
I
at
did.
age 9.
Yeah, yeah. My mother is a classical pianist and organist and choir director
Mm-hmm.
and educator as well.
Mm.
And my father is a jazz trumpeter and composer, arranger, and educator. And he was a member of the singer Ray Charles,
Oh,
his early bands in the early '60s, and he went out with Ray Charles for a couple of years. My father's from Mississippi, and he got his degree in college from Jackson State University, one of the HBCUs in the states, and met my mother. And he moved to Chicago, started a family and everything. And he had the opportunity to go out on the road with Ray Charles. So he went out with Ray Charles for a couple of years, and said, "Man, Ray don't pay no money. He's too cheap." So
it took him a couple of years to figure that one out.
yeah, kind of. Well, he knew it from after the first week. So, but
But it settled in his bones a few years later.
kind of, you kind of have to do these gigs in order to establish yourself within the whole game.
And I think, and then obviously somebody with of the stature of Ray Charles, that's literally your payment.
Yeah,
The fact
yeah.
you're linked to him
Hmm.
and the
People
time.
say, man, and if you stand up and take a solo, people say, "Hey, man, who's that trumpet soloist? Man, that cat's, I think I'm gonna call him, find out his name, you know." So you get other
Gigs,
gigs just
yeah.
from that. So he did it for a couple of years and said, I can do better just staying in Chicago, and I have my degree, so I'm gonna get a job teaching. So he got a job teaching in the school system, high school band director, and did that, and a whole lot of bands were coming through Chicago. Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Lionel Hampton, all these bands and artists were coming through Chicago and needed trumpet players. So my dad was getting a lot of those calls.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Oh, I'm making more money staying in Chicago than going out on the road." So he did that,
And then it gives him the time to be with around the family too.
exactly, exactly. And so I grew up in that household. There was music all over the house,
Mm.
and myself and my younger brother, who's a trombonist. His name is Vincent Gardner. Um, we both are professional musicians. Vincent is the lead trombonist in the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra with Wynton Marsalis,
Okay.
and so he's been doing that for I think close to maybe 15, 20 years or so. And so yeah, we've been come from a very musical family actually.
Yeah. So you just mentioned your brother. What are you currently doing? Obviously, you're just in Ghana for a short while, but
Hmm.
what do you do outside of Ghana?
Well, I'm a professor at the University of Manitoba in
Mm-hmm.
Winnipeg in Canada. prior to that, I was a professional musician full time in New York, and I was primarily in New York back in the 1990s.
You
And
said you moved there in 91?
91, yes,
That's
exactly.
the year Miles Davis died.
I met Miles Davis 6 months before he died.
Oh.
It was incredible. I went to New York as a member of the Count Basie Orchestra,
Mm-hmm.
and in that
The,
year,
the only thing I know of his orchestra was there's a movie called Blazing Saddles.
that's right,
Yeah,
that's
and he
right,
was in the
that's right,
desert playing
yeah,
his That was a
that's right, that's
fantastic.
incredible, yeah, right,
Yeah.
yeah, um, and so yeah, so I was with that band, and a lot of the people that were in that scene when they were playing in the desert were still in the band when I joined.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
and so except for Basie,
Of
of course, he
course.
had passed away by the
Yeah.
time. But so my first tour with the band was in the summer of 1991, and we were touring all over Europe and doing all the European jazz festivals. And Miles Davis was on the same flight that we were taking to a festival in France.
Mm-hmm.
So we all met up in the airport in Paris, and all the old heads in the band they knew Miles, and so we come up to Miles's band at the same gate where the plane's gonna take off, and they say, "Oh, there's Miles." And Miles said, "Hey guys, what's happening?" You know. And so they're lining up. "Hey Miles, how you doing?"
Uh-huh.
And I'm just kind of in line. You know, I'm scared to death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm just kind of moving up. Miles is here. I'm just kind of moving up. You know, and I kind of got my hand ready to. You know, and so I get up there and they say, "Hey Miles, this is one of our youngins here just joined the band, trumpet player, man. It's Derrick. Mr. Davis." I was nervous. I'm so honored to meet
Did
you. You
you?
know, and said, "All right, youngin, I hear you." I was and I kept looking at it on the plane. When we got on the plane, we were seated. I was seated here, and he was seated like maybe like in this area. So I had to, look at him. I had to go like that, you know.
So you
And so
basically
I
arrived
was,
with a crick in your neck.
oh
'Cause he
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he looked back at me. He was like that. I was like, oh no.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Um, was he somebody you would have liked to have worked with, and what about him and his music?
Oh wow, Miles Davis. Um, was the historical significance of Miles is that he changed music about 5 times. He changed the direction of music about 5 times. No one artist has done that. He fashioned himself in his early years after Dizzy Gillespie,
Mm-hmm.
and so when Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker had a famous band, back in New York, back in the '40s, a bebop band, and when they broke up, Charlie Parker kept the band together and kept playing, but he needed a trumpet player, and Miles Davis was checking them out every night when they were playing. And so the club owner was like, "Well, man, who you gonna get on trumpet?" He's like, "Miles. Miles
Mm-hmm.
gonna be on trumpet player." And Miles was like, "Who,
Who
me?"
me?
So Miles got up there and he was trying to sound like Dizzy, but basically he sounded like Dizzy, but with an octave lower and with a bigger sound. He had a bigger sound than Dizzy Gillespie. And then eventually his range started to increase, but he used his range differently and changed the texture of popular jazz trumpet. And so people were listening and said, "Man, this is like another thing happening here." Then the first change came when he collaborated with a gentleman by the name of oh my God, I can't think of this guy's name. Gil Gil Evans, a noted composer and arranger. They brought in this era called the Cool Era,
Okay.
and which allowed Miles to play much more melodically and much more more like song like, like somebody like a vocalist just crooning.
Mm-hmm.
He could do that on the trumpet and really expose his big warm sound. And this immediately changed the direction of music because everybody was used to hearing bebop, you
Mhm. Mhm.
know, all that. He was like, bo dee dee bo doo da, you know, all of a sudden everything is just spread out, you
Mm.
know. And I said, wow, this is beautiful. This is the way to go. So music changed, you know. And so he was always about um, changing with the the flow of the people. You know, changing those directions so that the people are always connected. And I would have loved to work with Miles, but I couldn't because I'm a trumpet player. You know,
Yes.
so I would,
And
be
in jazz, there are never two trumpet players in the band.
not really, not unless he has um, like a brass section that's
Ah,
backing him up. You
okay.
know, and I don't think he's ever done that with any of his ensembles. But hey, I'll pick up a cowbell or something,
Just
just
to
to,
think. Okay, since we're going to go for a musical break, but before we go there, um, we were talking about jazz at plus 233 and some performers like Victor Day. What have you found the jazz situation in Ghana to be like in the time you've been here?
Uh, I haven't really discovered the you know the entire jazz scene here, and the more time that I spend here in Ghana,
Mm-hmm.
I hope to assess for everything I'm looking for. What is the jazz scene
Yeah,
like here, or just the live music scene in general,
yeah,
and what do people respond to? How can I play my music in such a way that Ghanaians are going to respond to it, in a way that they like it,
yeah. D-
Uh,
mm-hmm.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just wondering if when jazz started off initially, was it popular music or was it music for the elite?
It was popular music.
Okay,
Jazz was the popular
popular
music of
music.
the day. Yes.
But now it's now,
Now it's more concertized
yeah.
music. Where you sit down and you listen. And but it's not such that jazz can't get you up out of your seat
Mm-hmm.
and you can dance to it. You know, that's always been the focus of jazz. No matter what changes were made, you were always expected to, move your body to it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But I think as we were talking, during the last song was playing, we were saying that there are a lot of musicians that have taken that aspect out of the music to where
It's just noise.
there is just noise and just kind of alienating
Mm-hmm.
your audience. You
Mm-hmm.
got to really focus on the average person that's just walking down the street that's not a musician. If you can impress that person musically,
Yeah.
then you're doing your job.
So basically, it's like they've gotten to the point where some musicians is about let me show how technically good I am,
Right,
or something for film theorists and critics to come and sit
right,
and
right,
evaluate.
right. And it's not a thing where that type of impression doesn't have to be a thing where you get up and just dance. It can be a thing where you listen, like you're listening to a great orator,
Mm-hmm.
and you just listen. Like I'm listening to Nelson Mandela, and I'm just so moved by what he's saying. I'm like, wow, it just allows you to think. So there are people like John Coltrane, you
Yes.
know, and if you listen to, oh, you could just put any of his performances, write them down on a piece of paper, and put them all in the fishbowl, and just say, okay, I'm gonna listen to this, and it'll just knock you off your feet. But I was listening to his recording of his tune Impressions
Mm-hmm.
that he did. It's live at the Village Vanguard, and he is just it's just levitating above the crowd. This in everything he's coming up with improvisation. You just sit back and you just taking it in. You're like, oh my God, what is? It's incredible. This is what he's doing. It's like you're listening. Yeah, like you listen to, I don't know, Martin Luther King or somebody. You know, it's that powerful. Everything that he's playing. Anybody off of the street could could would connect with that, and he's playing some very acrobatic things technically, but it still connects.
Yeah.
You know.
Which is the most important
Yeah,
thing.
that's right. That's right.
Okay, so let's listen to Slim Goody. Tell us something about Slim Goody.
Slim Goody, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this. Uh, Diallo knows what I'm talking
Okay.
about. Slim Goody refers to a woman with a very specific body type.
Big backside.
No.
Big boobs.
But no.
That's me doing process of elimination.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. You know, it's the total opposite. It's a person who is a woman who is slender, but still has the same type of shape of the elements that you just described: big backside, big boobs, but not. But that everything is more proportionate, but extremely feminine and extremely sexy.
Okay.
You know, but not like boom bam. You know, not that. You know, it's just everything.
I like that boom bam.
Boom bam. You know, in jazz, like that's symbolized by the drum beat. Boom, chicka boom, chick. You know, we see the boom bam. You know,
Yeah.
but no, this is just a woman that's.
Is this a woman you know?
There's many women that I know that represent this.
Oh, okay.
You know, I know. I do know women that, not the woman that no, you say.
I just wanted to narrow it
Yeah,
down.
narrow it down, right. But yeah, and out of African American culture, once again, is one of those terms, like men sitting on the corner, just kind of talking trash, or whatever, and all of a sudden, a Slim Goody walks by. Say, hey, look at that Slim Goody there. Oh yeah, man, that's what. Yeah.
Okay. And then she'll do to all of them when they start making comments. Okay. Still having a lot of fun here in the studio, and I do know that the time is going by, but Derrick, jazz, as we've been talking in the break, sounds incredibly complex. How do you start to put something together? Like, how do you conceptualize something? And then what's the creative process to get to that final product like Slim Goody that we just listened to?
The end process, the end part of it might result in a pretty complicated equation, but it starts out very simple.
Mm-hmm.
I like that tune Slim Goody. I was on the subway in New York City, and I was going to visit my girlfriend at the time, who's a Slim Goody.
You see, that's why you were like,
yeah, right,
okay.
Yeah, right. And I was riding the subway from. I lived in Brooklyn at the time. I was riding up to the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and that tune just popped in my head. The melody just popped in my head, and I said, "Man, I like that," And so, and at the time, we didn't have cell phones or anything like that. We still had like voicemail machines,
Yes.
That was attached to your landline phone
Yes,
at home.
yes.
And so when I got off the subway,
You called yourself and
I
hummed
called
it.
myself and hummed it. Exactly. So I wouldn't forget it, because I knew
Yeah.
if I went to sleep on it,
Yeah.
I would forget the melody.
Yeah.
And so, and then once I got it, I took that melody and I went to the piano and I put the harmony underneath the melody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much it. And I wrote it all out, and that was the basic tune. Then what you hear on the recording is the arrangement of that composition, and the composition is only a melody and harmony. That's the basic composition. what I did was I arranged that melody and harmony with three horns, trumpet, trombone, and tenor saxophone, piano, bass, and drums. And I charted out everybody's part. I charted out any type of special, um, specialized, isolated figures that people were to play. Like the bass has this line, bo bo don't ding don't ding. So I had to write that out for him, and the piano's going ding 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 along with that and everything. And so yeah, the end product might be a complicated equation, but the initial germ of idea is very simple.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, because it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
What about collaborations? How does collaborations work?
Uh, musically, collaborations. I've never done a musical collaboration with. Well, I take that back. I take that back. Um, like a premeditated musical collaboration probably doesn't work for me. Where we say like two composers get together and say, "Hey, we're going to compose a tune. Let's start out with this, and what do you think about that? Okay, yeah, let's put this here, let's put that there, and do this." That more than likely wouldn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have like a spontaneous collaboration that happens, that that is something that's incredible, and that's happened with me one time in the studio. The last recording, not well, like a couple recordings ago, um, we were in between in between songs. We just finished laying down the track for one tune, and we were just kind of waiting for our engineer to kind of get the recording stuff set up to do the next tune. And my rhythm section, they started just kind of noodling around with something, and they came up with this groove. I think the drummer started playing his groove, and then the bass player started putting this line to it, you know. Then the piano player heard heard something, started putting this harmony to it. All of a sudden, just started happening, and I'm listening to it. I was like, man, what they doing? And I cued the sound engineer. I said, roll. I said, press the button, you know. And so they started doing it, and the rhythm section they're just taking off with this thing, and they were just rolling. I said, yeah, keep going with that. And I signaled my the two horn players. I said, listen, and then I cued the saxophone player to just start improvising. You know, then I said to my brother who's on trombone, I said, listen to this line. And I started playing a background figure underneath the saxophone's, improvisational thing. And it just turned into this whole
Concert.
thing, and it was organic. And he caught it all on the recording. And I was going to use it for that next recording that I was going to do at the time, but the recording ended up not being produced. But I still have it,
Wow.
And I was like, and that's how a lot of recordings were done. Bands would just come into the studio and they just create together. And so I am looking to do a recording similar to that, sometime down the line. And a matter of fact, I think I'm going to have an opportunity to record a lot of music that I'm going to play while here in Ghana,
Mm-hmm.
in a few months down the road, and I'd like to introduce that aspect of creation into a couple of tracks that I'm going to do.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice, nice. If somebody wanted to learn, somebody's now been listening to this and thinking, I like the sound of this jazz. What's the first step?
Uh, if that person, you know, there's a couple different ways you can go about it. I would say, well, first that person would have to, have some type of proficiency on an instrument, and then then you have to jump into improvisation.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the way that a lot of people learn music is through I found is through like the classical system where they learn classical European classical music repertoire and all this stuff in order to, and a lot of the musicians that we play are European classical music, classical instruments like the trumpet,
Mm-hmm.
the piano, the bass, um, the trombone. All these are European classical instruments. So you have to learn, in order to be proficient on those instruments, you have to learn them in the European classical way. I
Mm-hmm.
guess, as far as like all the technical exercises and things like that. Very structured. Everything's written out for you. Boom, boom. And
So that's literally like your foundation. Then afterwards, you have to break it.
go into improvisation.
Yeah.
And the quickest way to go into improvisation is to do what Francis Johnson did back in the day, what I was just explaining. Take liberties with what's written on the page.
Mm.
So if you know like a popular song that you like to play on your instrument, uh, step away from the original notes of the melody and just kind of experiment, you know, and let your ear kind of take you outside of the notes on the page and alter some of the rhythms,
Mm-hmm.
and alter some of the pitches, um, and to see where you go with it, you know. And your ears will tell you what to do, you know. But but Africans have that naturally.
Mm-hmm.
They have that naturally, and so whatever instrument I would say, and I'm conceptualizing this as I'm speaking, whatever instrument like any African plays, they will automatically Africanize the, uh, the melodies that they are performing on. So if they have something that they're reading on the paper on the page, Africanize it
They're
and
putting the feeling
putting the
into it.
feeling into it. That's right. That's right.
Okay, so to wrap up, four questions. If you could only own one piece of music, what would it be? Or maybe a CD or something like that.
Oh wow, that's such. Oh, that's just as hard a question as when you ask what is jazz. That's. But wow. Uh, there is uh, there's I surprisingly I do have an answer for that. There's a recording that that really had a profound effect on me. Um, it is a jazz organist by the name of Larry Young, and in jazz we use the organ.
Mm-hmm.
It's called a Hammond B3 organ. It's a small organ that you sit down in. It's got a very distinct sound. And Larry Young put out a recording called Unity, and as one of my a very innovative and influential trumpet player that had a profound effect on what I do. His name is Woody Shaw on trumpet, and Joe Henderson on saxophone, and this drummer, John Coltrane's drummer named Elvin Jones.
Okay.
And that recording just put me into a trance pretty much. So I'd say if I was stuck on a desert island with nothing else to listen to, it's
That's the
that
one.
recording. And that's really hard. That's a stretch. It's hard to say that because there's so many great. I mean, you took Miles Davis,
Yeah.
Kind of Blue, John Coltrane, My Favorite Things, or Giant Steps, Jackie McLean, Jackie's Bag. I could go into so many other great recordings that I love to listen to, but I'll still keep coming back to Larry Young Unity and say, man, that's my thing, boy.
What about non jazz? What about non jazz?
Long jazz?
Non jazz. That music that isn't jazz.
Oh, non-jazz. Oh, man. uh,
What do you listen to that is non jazz?
Parliament Funkadelic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic. Earth, Wind and Fire.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way. Earth, Wind and Fire. That's the way of the world. That's one of my all-time favorites.
Favorites.
Again. Um, oh wow. Ooh, yeah, you're getting into a
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So, if you hadn't become a musician, what would you have been? Or it's not something you've ever thought of?
Mm. I wanted to be a truck driver at one point.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was what, before
Yeah, right.
9 years of age?
Yeah. When I was a little kid, we used to travel quite a bit. From Chicago down to Mississippi. My grandparents lived down in Mississippi, and so we loved to drive. My dad would drive all the time. We passed these big trucks,
Mm.
and on the road, I would always when we passed the trucks, I would go like this, put in the honk their horn. They go honk,
Uh huh. Uh huh.
and I loved trucks. And so I said, yeah, I think I want to be a truck driver when I grow up. My mom said, you ain't being no truck driver. So, okay, so throw that out the window.
Your work. What do you enjoy the most? And what do you enjoy the least?
um, I enjoy the most the effect that it has on people, the positive effect that it has on people. I enjoy also um, seeing my students progress
Mm-hmm.
with their exploits in music, whether it be in performance or in education, or they become composers or conductors or whatever. I just love to see when they have reached their own personal goals, and milestones. Um, what don't like, what I don't like, I guess. I guess it's not much that I don't like about it. There are always positives and negatives to everything, and uh, I guess the the business side of
Mm-hmm.
music, and where there's maybe some shady deals going on with the money, you know. Um, so, but the more you educate yourself as a musician
On the
on the
business
business
side.
side of it, then you can take care of that.
I think that's something that every artist is a challenge that every artist faces.
Yeah.
The business side. Lastly, but not leastly, people have heard your music. Where can they get your music? And when you're in Ghana here, do you think you will be performing?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we would need to know about that to let people know.
Okay. You can get my music through a website called bandcamp.com. Bandcamp. Yes.
BANDCAMP.com.
.com. That's the first piece you played, "Still I Rise."
Mm-hmm.
That whole recording is available on that site. Um, Another site that you can go to, which will give you a link to my other recordings, is through my own website,
Okay.
DerrickGardnerMusic.com.
Okay.
And they'll provide you links to.
To wherever you can find.
Yeah, exactly. And my music is downloadable on all of the
Spotify.
Spotify, Apple Music, all
Okay.
that stuff. Just
Excellent.
type in Derrick Gardner and the Jazz Prophets. And as far as where I'm playing in Ghana, I will, if I may, I'd like to the uh, yield the floor to my manager, uh, Diallo
Hey,
Sombri,
this your
and
manager,
he can
dear.
speak. which that microphone, is that good? Yeah.
Which one can I put? Which one is this?
We can just come over here.
Yeah, just come and
Okay.
bring yourself so that they can see
I'm
that
supposed-
the
I'm-
Mac Daddy himself.
Definitely not the Mac Daddy. But Saturday, July 24th,
Mm-hmm.
we will be at plus 233 Jazz Bar and Grill
Okay.
for all those in Accra. And then on Sunday, July 25th, we will be at One Africa, Holistic Health Resort in Elmina.
Okay.
And we are working on dates for the 26th. Possibly we may be at the National Theater with Panifest on Monday the 26th. And we're working on kind of a private invite-only shindig for the 23rd, which of course you'll get an invitation
Damn
to.
right I should.
Which you'll get an invitation to.
And I would definitely come.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So those are the performances this time around.
Okay, brilliant, Mr. Manager. Derrick, thank you so very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Our proverb today was, if speaking is silver, then listening is gold.
Oh wow.
What do you make of that?
Firstly, I'm inputting that into my lexicon of phrases. I'm letting you know I'm stealing that.
Well, it wasn't mine,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. So.
I think that just speaks truth to power. You know, that says it all. Yeah, you know, you have to listen in order to learn. You know, and a good friend of mine, musician friend of mine back in New York, older guy, he always says, never miss out on an opportunity to shut up. I said, whoa, you know, you get somebody that's always talking.
Wow, never
Never
miss out on the opportunity to shut up.
Yeah, and so you know, a person that's always talking and never listening, never learns anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so just be quiet and listen.
And listen
Maybe you'll learn something.
has the same letters as silence. Silent.
Wow.
I read that.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Derrick, for your time.
pleasure.
Thank you. And Diallo, too, for McDaddying the situation. He's like, why is this woman doing this to me? As always, a big thank you to my technician here,
Yeah,
AB. He
yeah,
puts
yeah.
everything to run smoothly so that I can shine. So
Yeah.
I really love him for that. We are on africaglobalradio.com. On Twitter and Instagram, we are AF Global Radio. Facebook, we are at Africa Global Radio. And of course, you can send us a WhatsApp on +233 2070 64680. Arts Africa is brought to you by Africa Global Radio.